Welcome to Holtonsfixit101. Today we're going to be talking about routers again, and more particularly, how do we set the depth of a cut in a plunge router. Now, I've had a couple of friends that's asked me, and I've also had a couple of emails from different people as well, saying how did I set the depth of cut in a particular thing that I just made. I just made a cabinet for my home, and they wanted to know how I set the depth of cut with the router bit. Was it hard? Was it easy? I'm here to tell you that it's very, very easy to do, to set the depth of cut. You know, I've got two variations of router here. They're both plunge routers, but this particular one is the 1/2 inch router. It's a bit of a beast. It's 1900 watts, and this is a little trim router, but it does have a little plunge base. It's very, very similar to the dare I say it, Katsu thing that's out there. I don't really go much for that, but it's very, very similar to that. But the function of both of these is exactly the same. They both plunge. Now let's get to it, and I will show you how I zero out and get the depth of cut in my plunge router. Right, here we are. You'll have to excuse the rain there is coming down on my roof of my workshop at the moment, but unfortunately is one of the things of British weather, I'm afraid. Right, so here I have, down in here I have a 1/2 inch straight cutting bit set up in my router. And I also have this, it's only an off-cut triangle of 18mm ply that I have in here. So what I'm going to start off by doing, I'm going to push it down so it hits the ply down in there. Now I'm going to lock that off. So I know that that bit now is zeroed out with the actual underneath of, or underside of the base. That's actually zeroed out perfectly with this underside. Right, all I'll do is I'll turn the router around, and so you can see. On this side I have a turret with 3 different heights set up on here. Now there's several ways of going around doing it. You have this measurement thing up here, which to be honest with you, I never use. I'd never go by that guidance because it's never what I would say 100% accurate. But what I do use sometimes, not all the time, but I use sometimes, is drill bits. Now we all have drill bits in our workshop, in everyday lives or something like that. They're all different thicknesses, obviously, for doing different holes. This particular one is a 10mm. So if I got measure across there, it's going to be 10mm. So what I'll do is I'll lift that up there. I'll try and do this so you can see, and I will push that down onto that. If I can do it, there we go. It's going down. Oh dear. Doing this one-handed is not the best. Right. So now I've got that down onto there. That is actually in there, and I'll wiggle it around a bit so I know that it's gonna be there. That's it. Right, and I'll also on this particular router change that there. I could spin that round so I can get a fine adjustment on there as well. So I'll do that, and that's give me fine adjustment on there, so it just traps it. You don't want to jam it in there, but you just want to trap it in there so you know it's a good fit, but not slack, but not overly tight. Alright, now what that allows you to do, it gives you that 10mm now in there. So we can let the plunge go like that, and now if I'll bring the router up. In fact, what I'll do is I will put the router down sort of like that. That might work. Okay, so you can actually see what I'm doing here. If I was to plunge that down now, so that hits that turret, I'll try and bring it up that way. There we go. This one's a bit on the stiff side because I don't actually use this router, to tell the truth. I'll tell you what, let's go on the edge and I'll plunge it right down. Okay, here we go. Right, now you can see that there, if I try and get the angle for you, that there is actually poking it up above this base, 10mm. Now obviously, you know, you're not going to do a full 10mm all in one pass and take it out on a board. That's just ridiculous. You would actually, if you was going to do 10mm deep in a piece of a ply or anything like that, you would either do it in 2 or maybe 3 passes, so it doesn't stress the motor of the router and it also doesn't stress the bit. And it's a lot easier to cut. You won't have to push so hard on the router to get it along. You would never do a 10mm straight away, straight one pass straight through a piece of wood. It's just ridiculous. Okay, but that's how you would, that is, so you know that is exactly 10mm. Now if I get there now and I lay that just gently down on there, you put your finger on the top and you can actually feel that. Now you can actually feel that across there, and it's, you know that it's 10mm. That's how I do getting the depth of cut. Now using the little plunge one, the little one, no different whatsoever from doing the big one. This one is a little bit more tricky because it's a little bit fiddly because it's so small. But there's no difference in the actual use of the router at all. Let's bring that back up so we can plunge it down. Right, let's plunge this down. Turn it around that way to start off with. This one's only 1/4 drive, so I've got a 1/4 inch bit, straight cutting bit, set up in the router here. Now push that down so it actually hits this piece of ply, and again I'll lock that off. Okay, so now we're locked off, so we know that bit is exactly the same height, or same as what this base is. Okay, so now we want our 10mm. Okay, so what we'll do with this particular one, this one's got a lock off mechanism on there. Right, I'll pull that back up a little bit. This one's a bit on the stiff side, I've got to admit. I don't actually use this base. So here we go, and I'll twist that round. There we go, a bit more. I can actually push that in, but right, now we've got that in there, it's got quite a gap obviously. So now let's turn that round so that one pushes down on that base. Now you can see that it's quite firm there. It's quite firm, and you can really adjust this one down like that. Right, and what I'll do is I'll pull that out, I'll lock that down there and everything else. Now I'll release that back up, that mechanism back up. Okay, so now when I plunge this router down now there, and I'll put the plunge lock on, you have a look along there and everything else, you can actually see that now is 10mm raised above the base of the router. Obviously, again, you would never ever do that in one pass. you would do maybe certainly for a little tiny router like this, you would never do more than 3, maybe 4 mil at a time. So if you want to do 10 mil, you would probably do it in maybe 3 passes to try and get to that depth. But the principle is exactly the same with both routers, whether it's this big one, or this small one. The principle is exactly the same. Now remember that everyone has drill bits in their workshop of some kind, whether they're imperial or whether they're in the metric sizes. Everyone has a drill bit of some kind. Now the other way of doing it, now I haven't shown you this quite yet, is that a lot of people have different sizes of obviously of wood. So they could also use a piece of wood in that plunge mechanism there, in the depth stop mechanism. This is a bit of 9mm ply. Now obviously this being 18mm ply, there's half the distance. So if I wanted to go put another groove in there, or dado if you're an American, if I wanted to put a groove in there that's only half that amount of that, I don't have to go there and measure it or get out a drill bit that's exactly 9mm. I could get a little offcut of 9mm ply and stick that in there instead. So, and everyone has, if you're in your wood shop or anything like that, you dare say you've got a bit of 9mm scrap bit of stuff hanging around. So just use that and do exactly the same and put that in there. So there we go, zeroing out and setting the depth of your plunge router. Now most people use plunge routers in this country. I have a fixed base routers when the depth on that is set tightly different. So don't even think that you can really use the same method on a fixed base router, because it does not work. But plunge based routers, most people in this country will have a plunge based router, and they are the most, after my table saw, the router, whether it's in a freehand or in the table, is the most useful thing that I have in my workshop. But there we go, whether you got the 1/2 inch or whether you got the little 1/4 inch, setting that depth is just the same. Now everyone has drill bits. This is a real old set that I've got here, but the actual drill bits themselves I've sharpened them a couple of times, and they're still good. So, but some of them are missing, and I've used them and they broke or whatever, and I just haven't replaced them in this set. I've got other sets, but there's a you know, so you've got all the different sizes if you want to use you know, get your depth of cuts and everything else. You don't necessarily have to use drill bits, but I find it is the most easiest way of getting your depth of cut, because they all go up from this particular set ranges from 4.5mm right up to 13mm. So if you want to set your depth of cut, these are probably the easiest way of actually doing it. But there are other methods, like I showed you with the piece of wood. You put the bit of wood in there and you do that, they do exactly the same. So there we go. Right, so if you want to connect with me on the usual social channels, they're displayed. So please leave comments below, and I will see you next time. And don't forget that subscribe button, and don't forget that bell icon. I think it's here somewhere along there. It is up here somewhere. Anyway, I will see you next time. Bye bye.